You ever hear something that doesn't land wrong at first, but starts to itch in your head the longer it sits there? That happened last night, right here in the booth, during the 1 a.m. news rundown. I was half listening like I always am. The wire feeds mostly fluff at that hour. Economic updates. Foreign affairs I don't pretend to understand. Then, out of nowhere, it mentioned a name. President Horace Velt. President of the United States. I paused, rewound it, just to make sure I didn't mishear. Nope, President Horace Velt. 2 terms, 1973 to 1981. Praised for de-escalating Cold War tensions and initiating the second American infrastructure revival. I sat there staring at the receiver, waiting for my brain to catch up. Because I've been around a while. I've done call-in shows with trivia buffs and history teachers. People who can list every president backwards while juggling conspiracy theories. I know that name doesn't belong there. We had Nixon, then Ford, Carter, Reagan. That's how it goes. That's the shape of the American timeline. That's how it's always been. But the broadcast said it like it was nothing. Like Horace Velt had always been part of the story. So I did what you do. I looked it up. And there he was. Photo after photo. Smiling next to world leaders. Giving speeches at places that look familiar but suddenly feel off. Like the backgrounds have changed just enough to make you question the foreground. I thought maybe it was a prank. An alternate history hoax. But the deeper I searched, the more official it looked. News clips. School websites listing his policies. Even a Wikipedia page, cited, clean, and eerily normal. And here's the part that really gets under my skin. None of the dates are different. It's not like he bumped someone else off the list. The timeline still works. It still fits. Ford is still there, apparently as a one-term VP turned interim. Carter's a senator now. Reagan still rises, just later. It's like the world adjusted to include him, smoothed out the seams, so it all still feels real. Unless you remember the other version. Unless you remember. I didn't bring it up on air right away. Thought I might have been tired. Overreacting. But something about that name kept echoing. Horace Velt. I never heard it before, but the sound of it made me feel like I should have. Like it had been stitched into the anthem while I wasn't looking. And if it happened once, what else has been rewritten? Who else? What facts do I still trust because I haven't been prompted to doubt them yet? So I'm opening the lines tonight. Not for requests. Not for love dedications. Just stories. Little things. History as you remember it. Because maybe I'm not the only one who heard the seam rip. And if that name, Horace Velt, means something to you or means nothing at all, I want to know. Because either I'm losing my grip on reality or reality's changing its grip on me. I didn't mention it again on air. Not right away. The president thing. The name that shouldn't have been there. I chalked it up to a misprint, maybe a rogue edit on a syndicated feed. These things happen, right? People misremember. Reporters get names wrong. Except they don't. Not like that. Not with something that specific. Not with 4 terms. Still, I moved on. Tried to. Spun some vinyl. Took a few regular requests. Drank my usual burnt coffee and kept one eye on the headlines. But then the call started. It was around 2:40 a.m. The line buzzed, and I answered without much energy, expecting a trucker wanting company on the highway or someone looking for a dedication. Instead, a woman's voice, low, uncertain, said, "Did you hear about the Berlin incident?" I paused. Berlin. She said, "Yeah, the wall. They tore it down in 82, right? That's what I remember." I said no. It was 89. That's standard history. There was silence for a moment. I heard her breathing, slow and shallow. Then she said, "No, it was 82. I was there. My dad took me. I remember the sound of the concrete falling and everyone cheering. My brother had a piece of it in his room for years." I told her, gently, that every record shows 89. That there's footage, news archives, anniversaries. But she was insistent. Not angry, just deeply shaken. "You don't understand," she said. "It's not just that it's wrong. It's that I've known this my whole life. And now, everything says otherwise." I told her I'd look into it. I lied, but I didn't have time to sit with it because another call came in. A man, sounding older, voice gravelly and uncertain, said, "Hey, when did the Gulf War happen?" I told him, 1990 to 1991. He let out a long breath, like someone trying not to be sick. Then he said no. That can't be right. I served. In 84, I started feeling cold. Real cold. Like something was wrong inside the bones of the world. Then another call. Then another. A woman swearing that Kennedy survived the assassination attempt. A man who remembered the Challenger explosion happening in 1982, not 86. Someone else who said they studied under Carl Sagan in 2001, which shouldn't have been possible. I started writing it all down. Dates. Names. The differences were small at first, just a few years off. But then they got stranger. Someone claimed Shakespeare had never existed. Another remembered the US being part of the British Empire until the mid-1800s. The accents didn't match, the locations didn't match, but the certainty, that was consistent. They weren't confused. They were convinced. And the worst part? Some of what they said, it felt right. Familiar in a way I couldn't explain. I had this moment, just a flicker, where I questioned myself. Did the Challenger really explode in 86? Or did I just always believe it did? I pulled out my phone, searched everything. And yeah, the facts still lined up with what I knew. For now. But when I reached for the encyclopedia we keep in the booth, just as a backup, a kind of joke really, I noticed the spine looked different. The publisher name was off. The logo was wrong. I opened it. Inside, on page 123, with a name I've never read in any version of American history. President Horace Velt. 2 terms, 1973 to 1981. And I swear to you, that name wasn't there yesterday. So I'm keeping the phones open. I'm writing it all down, because I don't think people are misremembering. I think something is rewriting, and maybe it's not done yet. I've kept this old globe in the booth for years, mostly for decoration. One of those antique-look pieces with a wooden stand and sepia-tone continents. It spins when you nudge it. Used to be a comfort in a weird way. Something fixed, physical. A reminder of the world outside. All its edges and names and distances. A reminder that no matter how strange the nights got, the world itself was still where it was supposed to be. I spun it tonight, just like I always do when I'm thinking too hard. But when I stopped it, set my hand down on the Atlantic, I noticed something off. A small island near the west coast of Africa. Well, I didn't recognize. I leaned in, squinting under the overhead light. The name read Bellerin Republic. Population 8 million, capital city, Dalmore. It had a flag printed on the side, blue and gold, with a bird in the center. That island's never existed. Not on any map I've ever seen. Not in any atlas. Not in school, or the news, or any quiz game I've ever played in this booth on slow nights. And it wasn't just printed onto the globe. This wasn't someone sticking on a fake label. It was part of it. The paint was worn like everything else. Seamless. I pulled out my phone. Searched for it. Nothing. No Bellerin Republic. No Dalmore. No mentions, no travel articles, no satellite images. Just a couple of conspiracy forum threads, dead-ended years ago. Then the text started coming in. First one said, "Is it just me, or is Mongolia shaped wrong?" Another, "Look up a map of South America. It's too far east. It's leaning toward Africa." Then one that chilled me more than I want to admit. "I live in Alberta." Or I did. Now it says I live in North Columbia. Did they rename Canada overnight? I checked it all. Started comparing maps from different years. Opened a half-dozen tabs, pulled out an old travel guide from the shelf behind me. And it's not just people's memories that are different. The physical records are changing. One website showed Greenland as uninhabited. No ice sheets, no settlements. Another described Antarctica as a disputed territory divided between 5 nations. My high school geography class never mentioned that. I reached for my backup, an atlas I inherited from my uncle, printed in 1983. It's missing pages now, water-stained and brittle, but it's always felt like a rock. A truth. Except now, page 27, the map of the Middle East, has a border I don't remember. A country wedged between Syria and Iraq called Darwin. No flag, no history, just there. I turned to the index. Darwin is listed 5 times. And the terrifying thing is, I almost remember it. Like a word on the tip of your tongue. Like a faint déjà vu you can't trace. I don't know what's worse, that the map has changed, or that I'm starting to accept it. I got a call from a listener in Sweden. She sounded calm but tired. Said the ocean looks wrong from her coastline. She used to see a certain constellation over the water every summer night. Said now it's gone, replaced by something unfamiliar. Not just the stars, she said. The angle. The whole angle is wrong. And the worst part? No one else around her seems to notice. It's like the world is shifting around us, and we're the only ones feeling the drag. Like we're caught between what was and what is trying to be. Like the world is rewriting its margins, and the corrections are starting to bleed through. So I'm marking everything, drawing new maps by hand, sketching what used to be, because I don't know how long the world we remember will still exist, or if we'll be allowed to remember it at all. It's the photographs that really drove it home for me. I keep a stack of them in a drawer by the booth, old prints, yellowing edges, fading ink. Some are from station events, the kind where 3 people show up and you pretend it's a crowd. Others are personal. One in particular, a birthday party. My 15th. There's a banner in the background that reads, "Congrats, Mike, future Mars engineer." I remember that banner because it was a joke. One of those dumb inside things my cousin started after I said, with absolute certainty, that I was going to be one of the first people on Mars. I was obsessed back then. Posters on the wall, books stacked under the bed, little red planet paperweights cluttering my desk. I even made a cardboard rover for a science fair. Took it way too seriously. And yet tonight, I looked at that photo and something was missing. The banner. Gone. Everything else was the same. The cheap cake, the dumb grin on my face, the same creases in my shirt from where it had been folded too long. But the banner was gone. Not torn down. Not cropped out. Just never there. I flipped through more of them. Looked for the model I built, the one I swore was in the background of 2 other photos. Nothing. Just blank wall. No sign of Mars. No hint I'd ever cared. So I checked online. Typed in Mars mission plans. The usual headlines came up: concept, theoretical, public interest low. I blinked at that one. Low? That can't be right. I remember watching a live feed of the landing tests in high school. The whole classroom crowded around one dusty monitor while a cheer went up when the mock rover landed. But that landing? It never happened. I looked deeper. Timeline after timeline, article after article, and none of them match what I remember. No budget was ever approved. No test launch. No public education campaigns. Just a vague shrug towards someday. It was like an entire future had been quietly deleted. Like we all made different choices in some other version of the world, and the echoes of those choices have been edited out. Then the emails started coming in. One from a teacher who swore she used to teach about the Lunar Mining Agreement, a major treaty signed in 2041. But her textbook now lists no such year and no such treaty. The book ends in 2035, right after global oceanic reformation, another event she doesn't remember at all. Another email from a man in New Zealand who said his mother had written a book, self-published, barely sold, but he remembered holding it, reading it, the dedication to him in the front. And now, nothing. No mention online. No copy in the house. Just a shelf where it used to be. He said, "It's like the past is being revised by what didn't happen." That line stuck with me, because it makes sense in a horrible way. We think of history as events, dates, names. But history is also possibility, what we aimed for, what we thought we were reaching. And now those futures are missing, quietly, surgically removed. It's not just that timelines are changing. It's that what we hoped for was never real. And if the future is being erased from the past, if those aspirations, those almost, those dreams that shaped who we became are gone, then who are we now? Who did we become instead? I don't know. But I keep looking at that empty spot on the wall in my birthday photo. And I swear, even without the banner, it still feels like someone was trying to tell me something. Something about the stars, and how we were never meant to reach them. I think it's picking up speed. Whatever's happening, whatever's shifting the pieces on the board, it isn't a slow crawl anymore. It's a cascade, like someone pulled a thread and the whole tapestry is unraveling, line by line, knot by knot. And you don't see the full damage until you step back and realize the pattern underneath is gone. Tonight, I started hearing a new phrase, the Mandela cascade. Someone called in around 1 a.m., voice calm, clear, like they'd rehearsed what they wanted to say. "You know about the Mandela effect, right?" they asked. I said sure. Misremembered facts, alternate memories, Berenstain versus Berenstain, that kind of thing. They said, what if that was just a leak? What if the Real flood started hours ago? I asked what they meant. They said, look it up. Mandela effect isn't about misremembering anymore. It's about consensus failure. That's what the news search results say. That's what the academic papers say. And they were right. I pulled up a dozen articles, even one from a psychology journal I'd read years ago, and every one of them framed it differently now. Not as shared false memory, not as glitches in perception, but as social dissonance, reconstructed narratives, group hallucination. Even the origin changed. It used to be about Nelson Mandela, people swearing they remembered his death in prison in the 80s, even though he lived into the 2010s. But now the term doesn't mention him at all. Now it's attributed to a media phenomenon from early internet folklore, vague and unanchored. It's like they scrubbed the anchor and left the term drifting. I looked through my old notes, segments I'd planned back in 2016 for a show on shared delusion, and the phrase was still there, with Mandela's name. But the links I'd saved now lead to 404 pages. Rewritten entries, dead URLs. A listener from Georgia emailed in a screen grab of a children's book. It used to say Curious George. Now it's Inquisitive George. Same illustration, different title. No record of it ever being otherwise. Another message came in. I work at a history museum. 3 exhibits are gone. Not moved, gone. Staff remembers them. Guests remember them. But the displays, the plaques, the archives, they've been overwritten, as if they were never curated. Someone else called sobbing. Said they remembered a plane crash that killed their sister in 2003. Said it was the worst night of their life. But now, their sister is alive, living in New Jersey, has a family, 2 kids. No one else remembers the crash. Not even her. He said, I should be grateful. But if it didn't happen, who mourned with me back then? I didn't know what to say, because I think I understand what he meant. It's not just that memories are changing. It's that emotions are being stranded. We're left holding grief for things that never occurred, joy for victories that no longer have names. Like pieces of ourselves are being unstitched and nothing's growing back in their place. The Mandela effect used to be a curiosity, a dinner party theory, a late-night thought experiment. But this is systemic. This is global. And the changes aren't just about dates or logos anymore. They're about identity. If we remember things that no one else does, what does that make us? If the world rewrites its own past, but leaves us behind with the older version still playing in our heads, are we survivors? Or are we the errors that haven't been corrected yet? I don't know, but I keep thinking of the phrase the caller used. The Mandela cascade. Not an effect. A fall. I've been keeping notes. Pages and pages now, scribbled in margins, backs of receipts, napkins from the station kitchen. Anything I can write on. Not just dates or headlines, memories. My own, trying to pin them down before they shift too. It's like catching water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it leaks. Tonight, I opened an old notebook I haven't touched in years. It was tucked behind the record shelf, full of college stuff, class schedules, dumb poems I wrote during late-night shifts, random thoughts I once thought were brilliant. One page stood out. It was a letter, dated 2007, written by me, addressed to me, and I don't remember writing it. The ink's faded, but the handwriting matches mine almost too perfectly. It's full of references I kind of recognize, names, moments, even a beach trip I almost recall, but the tone is different, like it's from a version of me that grew up just slightly to the left of the path I actually walked. It ends with, you'll feel it one day, the timeline folding in on itself. When you do, don't trust your photographs. Trust your hands. They'll remember what the mind forgets. I don't know what I meant, or if I meant it, and I don't know how to prove to myself that I didn't write it, or that I did and just forgot. But it's not just that one letter. Things are off, more than ever. I called my sister earlier, just to hear a familiar voice. We don't talk much anymore, different lives, different clocks, but I needed to check something. I asked her about the summer of '98, the camping trip, the storm that washed out the road and stranded us in that cabin for 3 days. She went quiet. Then she said, we never went camping in '98. You were in the hospital that summer, but I wasn't. At least, I don't remember that. I remember marshmallows, wet shoes, a raccoon stealing our trail mix. I remember a flashlight flickering while she read aloud from a comic book. She didn't. And the worst part, she sounded so certain. I looked at my hands. I don't know why. Maybe because of what that letter said. I stared at the scar on my right thumb, the one from when I cut myself carving wood that summer. I remember that pain. I remember the way the blood ran down my wrist and my dad wrapping it in a clean sock until we could get to the ranger station. But if we never went camping, then how'd I get that scar? These are the glitches that aren't recorded, the ones no one can fact check, the personal fractures, the parts of yourself you assume are real because they feel true, and suddenly that's not enough. Another caller tonight said his childhood best friend vanished from his photos. Literally gone. Same photos, same background, but the friend he swears was always there is missing now. Not blurred out, replaced. The arm on his shoulder still there, but attached to someone else. A stranger. He said, "If I can't prove we laughed together, did we?" I had no answer for him. And I wonder now, how many pieces of me I've already lost? How many versions of myself have already slipped out of alignment, too far gone to retrieve? I check the mirror more often. Not out of vanity, out of fear. That one day I'll look and see someone I don't recognize. Not because they're unfamiliar, but because I'll remember them being someone else. It's every hour now, like clockwork. On the hour, exactly when the digital wall clock in the booth flips over, something changes. Not always big, not always immediate, but something. You can feel it before you even know what it is. Like the gravity in the room adjusts just a little. Like the air gets rewritten. I noticed it first during the midnight update. I was reading the World News Rundown, one of those dry, pre-written summaries from The Wire. I'd read the same one at the top of each hour out of habit, like a time anchor. But when I opened the file this time, it had changed. Not just edited, rewritten, new countries, different headlines. A war I'd never heard of, listed like it was old news. The reunion accord of 2005 brought an end to the Baltic partition crisis. The what? I Googled it. Every result confirmed it happened. News articles, Wikipedia, photos, speeches, history books, as if it had always been part of the timeline. I flipped through my notes from earlier tonight, the printout of the exact same feed from 11 p.m., and the accord wasn't there. The war wasn't there. The Baltic partition wasn't a thing. And now it's apparently been a historical fact for 2 decades. And then it happened again. 1 a.m., top of the hour. The World News feed listed someone named Prime Minister Chun as the longest-serving global leader of the 21st century. Chun? I don't remember any Chun. Not in any election, any headline, anywhere. But I looked her up, and again, pages of results. Video clips, quotes, speeches she supposedly gave in places that no longer show the names I remember. As if this timeline is buffering, replacing itself in hourly increments. And I'm starting to feel it in my body. I get this tightness in my chest about 2 minutes before the hour strikes. A feeling like static in my ribs, like something waiting to be overwritten. My hands shake a little. I brace myself. Then the clock ticks over, and the booth feels different. Like I just stepped into a slightly different version of myself. I've started marking the shifts on the wall. I take a Sharpie and write a word, a name, something small at 10 minutes to the hour. Then I check it again at 5 after. Sometimes it's the same. Sometimes the letters are rearranged. Once the ink had vanished completely, like it was never there. Another time, the marker was still there, but the wall had changed color. It's subtle, always subtle, enough that you question your own senses. But it's real. I'm not the only one. Listeners are calling in, reporting the same hourly pressure. A woman from Texas said her entire neighborhood layout changed sometime around 3 a.m. Not dramatically, just enough. A gas station was now a laundromat. A crosswalk was missing. Her house had a different number. A man from Oregon said he left a notebook on his kitchen table, filled with diary entries. And when he picked it up after midnight, all the pages were blank. Except one, which had a note he didn't write. It said, "It's not a glitch. It's a schedule." And I think they're right. Whatever's rewriting the world, it's doing it on a cycle. Measured, precise, hour by hour. And the terrifying part? We seem to be the only ones noticing. The only one still sinking to the previous versions, clinging to the memory of what just was. I keep asking myself, what happens when we shift? When the hour rolls over and I'm no longer me, but someone who doesn't remember this broadcast, this moment, this voice. And worse, what if it's already happened and this voice you're hearing isn't me anymore? Just a version that got left behind. I think the station's the only thing that hasn't changed. Or maybe it has, and I'm too wrapped up in it to tell. But something about this place feels immune, or maybe just resistant. Like the signal itself is holding a memory the rest of the world can't carry anymore. I know it sounds strange. I know I'm the last person who should be talking about anchors to reality when I've been broadcasting through what might be a complete collapse of time itself. But every time I walk back through that booth door, something settles. Not calms, just remembers. The logs are intact. The paper logs. The stuff we scribble down when the digital tools glitch or when a power surge knocks out the board. I checked them again an hour ago. They're still dated right. Still in my handwriting. Still mention callers and headlines and songs that no longer exist in this new timeline. And the tapes? Yes, tapes. Reel-to-reel archives we keep locked in a cabinet that nobody ever touches. I played a few of them back. Broadcast from months ago. You can hear my voice mention places that no longer show up on a map. Events no one else remembers. I played one where I read a tribute to an astronaut who, in this current version of history, never made it into space. The tribute aired during a memorial. I remember that night. I remember crying while I read it. But I looked up her name in this timeline and found nothing. No death, no flight, just a vague article about a retired professor in Colorado with the same name and a blank bio. But the tape? It still plays. That's when I realized the signal, the transmission itself, might be preserving something. Like a strand of continuity running parallel to the rest of the world's memory. Something analog. Something old enough to resist the edits. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the equipment or the frequency or just the weird magic of radio. This strange, invisible thread that connects one voice to another without anything in between. I thought maybe it was just in my head. Until tonight. A man called in. Long-haul trucker. Said he's been listening on and off for years, tuning in whenever his route brings him within range. He told me he drove through the state line yesterday, and the signage had changed. The welcome sign listed a different name. The roads were right, but the town names were off. One of them was completely gone. He said, but your station was still there. Same frequency, same voice, same song I heard last year. I asked him if the signal sounded different, warmer, clearer, distorted. He said no, said it sounded exactly the same. Like the radio in his cab was the only thing that didn't get the update. And he wasn't the only one. A woman emailed from 2 states over. Said she's been recording the late night segments because her kid likes to fall asleep to the static and mumble of distant voices. She played a clip from last week, one she swears was live when she recorded it. It mentioned a protest in a city that no longer exists. Not a misunderstanding. A city that's been wiped off the current maps. No records, no history, but it's there, on the recording, and I was the one who said it. So here's what I think. This station is remembering. It's not fighting the changes, not reversing them, but it's holding on just enough like a scratch on a record that you can still hear if you know where to listen. Maybe because it's analog, maybe because it's human, or maybe because it's you. You listening right now. You tuning in when everything else feels off. Maybe your memory is the last archive. Maybe we're all just one shared broadcast away from forgetting everything. So keep the dial steady and don't stop listening, because this signal, it might be the only history we have left. I got a call tonight from someone I've known for years, or at least I thought I had. He called himself Brandon, voice like gravel and rain. Always called in during the last hour of the shift, usually to share thoughts about the night sky or ask for some long-forgotten blues track we both pretended to know the words to. We joke, trade bits of trivia, sometimes get philosophical about whatever weirdness the night had brought. Brandon had been a constant, a touchstone, so when the line lit up and his voice came through, I didn't even ask for a name. I knew it, knew the rhythm of it, the shape of it. Funny night for a rewrite, he said. That's all it took. Just that. And I froze, because something in that sentence hit wrong. like a memory bent at the edges. I knew the voice. I remember the conversations. But I couldn't remember when we'd last spoken, or how often, or even what city he claimed to be from. I went through the logs. No mention of him. Not once. Not a single Brandon in the call sheets. Not in the recordings. Not even the reel-to-reel archives I swore had at least 2 of his late-night ramblings on tape. I thought maybe it was an error. Maybe we just never wrote his name down. But I checked the recordings anyway, scanning through hours of static and night music, and he's not there. Not one word. Not one breath. But I remember him. Not vaguely. Not abstractly. Clearly. I remember a story he told me about getting stuck in a thunderstorm outside Albuquerque. The way he described the lightning as trying to rewrite the sky. I remember him laughing at his own jokes, always just a second too late. I remember him asking me, one night last winter, if I'd ever had a memory I was sure didn't belong to me. But he's not in the system. He's not in any system. And when I called the number back, it didn't exist. Not disconnected. Not out of service. Never existed. I sat in silence for a long time after that, listening to the hum of the station, the soft mechanical click of the clock as it prepared to flip the hour. And I started wondering, if someone can disappear so completely, not just from the world, but from recorded memory, how do we know who or what is real anymore? How do we trust our own history? How do we know we're not about to be erased the same way? I tried writing his name down, Brandon, just to make it physical to prove he'd been here. But the pen in my hand wouldn't move. I don't mean that figuratively. I mean it literally wouldn't write. Ink, yes. Function, yes. But the second I tried to form the letters, my hand stopped. It's like the world itself refused the memory. And maybe that's what scares me most. Not that people can be forgotten, but that we're being trained not to remember them in the first place. If that's true, if Brandon was real and the world decided he no longer fits into whatever timeline we're in now, what happens to people like me who still remember? Am I next? Am I holding on too tightly to things that aren't supposed to be held? Or is this station, this mic, this broadcast the only reason I haven't been overwritten yet? I don't know. But if you're out there, if you remember Brandon or someone like him, call me. Please. Because I don't want to be the last one who remembers a voice the world has already erased. It happened again, but not the way you'd think. At 2 a.m., I got a report. Breaking news, live feed, the works. A city in Eastern Europe gone. Not metaphorically, not politically. Gone. The way the anchor said it. Their voice trembling, trying not to slip into disbelief. An explosion of unknown origin leveled the urban center. There were no warning signs, no seismic activity. Just light, and then silence. They showed aerial footage. Ash where there'd been buildings. Roads cut off mid-intersection. A void, like the map had been torn away. Emergency crews were en route. World leaders were convening. The words historical tragedy scrolled in red across the bottom of the screen. I stared at it, hands still, jaw clenched. I didn't breathe for a full minute. Then the clock struck 3, and it was gone. Not the city, the event. Newsfeed wiped. Social media cleared. Not a trace of the explosion. Every major outlet now leading with a story about a diplomatic conference in that same city. Still standing, still busy, as if nothing had ever happened. I blinked at the screen, hit refresh, searched archives. Nothing. No cached pages. No screenshots. Just one caller, voice shaking, who said, "I saw it too. I swear I did. My cousin lives there. She was texting me." She screamed. And then nothing. He tried to find the texts. They were gone. His call log was blank. And when he called her back, she answered. Confused. Alive. The city intact. I don't think this is about changing history anymore. I think this is about testing it. Rewriting the irreversible. Replaying the worst moments just to see if they can be done differently, or if we'll even notice when they're undone. Like the world is rehearsing itself. Over and over. Resetting every hour. Keeping what fits. Scrubbing what doesn't. But I remembered. And that might be the problem. Because I think I'm not supposed to. Another caller said he remembers a flood that never made the news. Said his childhood home was swept away by a river that doesn't exist on any current map. But he remembers the water, the scream of his father, the cold that seeped into his bones. He found a picture, he said. One photo of the house, half underwater. But when he tried to scan it, the image corrupted. Not glitched, erased. As if the act of trying to document it was enough for the world to pull it back. I asked him if the photo was still in his hand. He said no. The print had turned blank. I didn't know what to tell him. I still don't. Because I'm starting to wonder if even the tragedies we endure are conditional now. Like someone or something is flipping through versions of us, rewriting our grief until it's convenient. And if that's the case, how many things have already been erased? How many losses rewritten into victories? How many disasters reversed while we slept? Maybe that city didn't survive the second time. Maybe it just survived for me. Or maybe I'm clinging to a version of the world that blinked out hours ago. And this signal, this booth, is just the echo that hasn't caught up yet. If you're still listening, if you remember the explosion, you're not alone. And if you don't remember, maybe you were never supposed to. But I do, and I won't let it vanish. Not yet. It started with a street sign. I stepped out of the booth for some air. Same little routine. Walk the gravel path to the fence, stretch, let the signal tower hum behind me like a lullaby I never wanted. I glanced at the corner near the road, where the rusted old sign reads Gallows End Road. Always struck me as dramatic for a sleepy desert stretch with more lizards than cars. But tonight, it didn't say that. It said Mason's Hollow. Same pole, same dents, same bullet holes from whatever bored idiot shot it years ago. Different name. I stood there staring at it for a long time. Just frozen. Like if I looked away, it might shift again. Like maybe I caught it mid-change. But it didn't flicker. It didn't glitch. It was just wrong. And it wasn't just the sign. I walked back in and checked my maps. The local one we keep pinned on the bulletin board for emergencies, coffee-stained and dog-eared. It had changed too. The road name was different there as well. Mason's Hollow, like it had always been. So I pulled out the Rolodex. The list of call-ins, regulars, guests from the old days. It used to have a guy named Dan Halpern on there, ex-military, used to call in with those slow gravel voice stories that half the trucker swore were made up and the other half said were gospel. I looked him up. Not just his card, his existence. Gone. No mentions online. No old emails. The name tag on his guest segment from 2018? Gone. I found a show archive. He's not in it. The file plays fine, but it's just silence where his voice used to be. I tried searching for someone else. Just a random name that came to mind. Leslie Torrin. Don't know where I heard it. Might have been a listener. Might have been a story someone sent in. Except when I searched it, I got hits. A lot of them. Books, articles, quotes, dozens of pages linked to this person who I don't remember ever being real, but now has a whole life. Except every single one of those links ends in a dead page. Like someone set up a skeleton of a life and forgot to build the rest. Even creepier, her author photo, the same headshot, slightly tilted smile, pale background, different name on each one. Like the world's trying to assign identities now. Like it's generating filler, dummy data, and it's not even bothering to hide it. I got an email from a listener who found a book in their home library, one they swear they didn't buy. No barcode, no publisher info, just the title, When It Stops Remembering Us. Inside, every chapter begins with a different name as the author. Every time they open it, the order changes. Another listener found a plaque on a statue in their town square. It used to honor a civil rights leader, someone real, someone whose speeches they'd memorized in school. But now the plaque says the statue is of someone called Nira Desham. No search results, no photos, no record of such a person, but their signature is etched into the stone, and no one else finds it strange. That's what gets to me, not the changes, the acceptance, the way everyone around us adjusts like it's always been that way, as if these names, these people, have always been here, as if the world itself can't bear the idea of absence, so it just fills in the gaps with noise. But I remember the street sign. I remember Dan Halpern. I remember the sound of voices the world is trying to erase, and the shape of names it's trying to invent. So here's what I'm asking. If you see a name you don't recognize, one that feels hollow, like it was never earned, write it down. Not to honor it, to prove it was never real, because someone or something is rewriting our history by giving it characters we didn't choose. And soon, We may not recognize any of the names we've ever loved. Time's losing its grip. It's not just the history books anymore, or the maps, or the faces of people who were never born and yet always were. It's the order of things, the sequence, cause and effect, logic, that invisible thread that used to hold everything together, the why and the what after. It's fraying, and I can feel it unraveling right here in the booth, even while I talk to you. A few hours ago, I got a call from a woman in Nevada. She said her son built a birdhouse yesterday, painted it red. She remembers watching him hammer it together, laughing when he got paint on his nose. A sweet memory, crisp and clear. But this morning, the birdhouse was already old, weathered, like it had been sitting outside for years. Faded paint, splintering edges, a wasp nest in the corner. She asked him when he built it. He said 2 years ago. She checked her phone. No photos, no record of the project. But there it was in her memory, as fresh as anything. I asked her what scared her most. She said, "I think my memory is true. I just don't think it matters anymore." That line stuck with me. Because here's the thing. What's the point of memory if the events it recalls didn't cause anything? If we can't point to this moment and say, because of that, this happened, if the sequence is just scattered? I looked through the booth logs earlier. Notes from last night's show, the order of calls, the tracks I played, my little scribbled jokes in the margins. But the timestamps don't make sense. I announced the song before I played it. I answered a question someone hadn't asked yet. One caller referenced a segment I never aired, until 2 hours after the call. Even my own voice in the recordings sounds like it's responding to things out of order. Like I'm speaking along 2 timelines at once, trying to act natural while the hours collapse in on themselves. I got another call. This one from a guy who said he woke up with bruises he doesn't remember earning. Just appeared overnight. But then, halfway through the conversation, he stopped and said, "Wait, no. I got these last week, during the crash." And then silence. And then, "No, I didn't. That never happened." It was like his brain kept flipping through cards, trying to land on the right story. And there wasn't one. More listeners started chiming in. One said she remembered her dog dying last month. But when she came home today, the dog was alive. Same dog, same collar, but older, as if it had aged while gone. Another described writing a letter in the future, not metaphorically. She said she physically wrote a letter she hasn't mailed yet, but had already arrived. The recipient sent a thank you text. She hadn't written the last paragraph yet. We used to take time for granted. Not just the hours or the days, but the idea that one thing follows another. That actions build into consequences. That there's a before and an after. But now it's all now. Just now. And it's terrifying. Because if nothing leads to anything else, if time's arrow has shattered into dust, then we don't just lose history. We lose purpose, direction, reason. I keep thinking, if I say something on air right now, some warning, some truth, will it cause anything? Or is it already too late? Already overwritten by the next shift? The top of the hour is coming again, and I don't know if I'm about to say something that makes sense or remember something that hasn't happened yet. Either way, stay with me. Even if this is all out of order, maybe we can still hold the thread. Even if it's frayed. I don't know what day it is. That used to be a joke. Night shift humor. Something you say when your sleep schedule's upside down and the sun feels like a rumor. But now I mean it. Deep down, bones and blood, I mean it. I don't know what day it is. The calendar on the wall says Thursday, but the sticky note on my console says Saturday, and my phone insists it's Monday. 3 clocks, 3 realities, and not one of them feels more right than the others. It'd be easier to pick one and move on, just commit. But that's the trap, isn't it? Pretend it's normal, and maybe the world lets you live inside the fiction. But I can't lie to myself that cleanly anymore. The logbook's the only thing keeping me grounded. It used to be boring. Rows of times, notes on segments, calls, track names. Now it's survival. I don't just log events, I log myself. What I said, what I felt, who I talked to. Every hour, a new page. Like I'm writing a manual for the next version of me. The one who won't remember any of this. And that's happening more and more. The forgetting. I caught myself staring at the mic earlier, like it was a stranger. Like I didn't remember how to use it. I blinked, and a whole chunk of the night was gone. Maybe 10 minutes. maybe an hour. I only realized it when I looked at the booth clock and couldn't recall turning the song off. It wasn't just blank. It was missing, like the memory was never written in the first place. I used to believe that if something happened, even if you forgot it, the world still remembered. There'd be proof. A photo, a receipt, a bruise. But now, I check the desk for my cup of tea. I remember steeping it. I remember the smell, hibiscus and orange peel, something a listener sent me in the mail months ago. But the cup's not here. The tag's not in the trash. The water in the kettle's cold. And I'm starting to wonder if I never made it at all. I've been seeing smudges in the margins of the logbook. Words I don't remember writing. Scrawled too fast, too rough. Half-legible phrases like, "Do not trust the hours. If you forget it, it forgets you. Speak it out loud or lose it forever." There's no signature, but the pen's the same as mine. And the ink is still wet. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm flickering in and out like a bad signal. And some version of me is trying to leave breadcrumbs for the next loop. Or maybe the station's remembering for me. Catching echoes I can't hold on to. Whatever the case, I've started recording voice notes. Not for broadcast, just to hear myself. To prove I'm still here. That I was here. Because if I wake up one day and all of this is gone, if the logbook is blank, if the booth's quiet, if the mic's cold, I need something to tell me I existed. Even if no one else remembers. Even if I don't. Because when history rewrites itself by the hour, the only thing that matters is what you write down before the ink runs out. And I don't know how many more blank pages I can afford. I think this is it. I don't know how to explain that. There's no siren, no shutdown, no voice from above telling me it's over. But something's different. Heavier. The air feels like it's holding its breath, and I'm not sure what happens when it exhales. The logbook's gone blank. I flip to the latest page, ready to write. Nothing. The ink doesn't stick. I try to pencil. Same thing. Just dull scratches, no mark. Like the page has decided not to participate anymore. And I swear I didn't imagine this. But when I opened it, the first few pages were filled with handwriting I've never seen before. Tight script, angled like it came from a different hand. The entries weren't mine. They were about me. Descriptions. Times I walked outside. Moments I paused between songs. Thoughts I hadn't said aloud. It was like someone was watching me from the other side of the glass. And then the ink faded right there in front of me, line by line, disappearing into the paper like it had never been there. Like it was done being remembered. I checked the broadcast logs. No history. Checked the archive tapes. All labeled, but when I press play, nothing. It's not silence. It's absence. Like the signal was never sent. Like I was never here. But I know I was. I have to believe that. There's this idea I can't shake. Maybe we weren't meant to record things. Not permanently. Maybe memory was supposed to be soft, uncertain. Maybe by trying to hold on to it so tightly, we've broken the rules. Made ourselves anomalies. Maybe that's why the world's rewriting itself. Trying to correct us. Trying to erase the people who remember. So maybe this broadcast, maybe it's the last defiance. Not because it changes anything, but because I'm saying it out loud. Naming it. Giving shape to the thing that's been reshaping us. Because if history's falling apart, if time and truth and cause and memory are all crumbling beneath us, then the last thing I want to do is forget. Forget this booth. Forget the signal. Forget the voice I used to call my own. Forget you. Maybe tomorrow, the world wakes up and this place never existed. Maybe the records are gone and the stars are different and the names we loved are now placeholders for strangers. Maybe none of this ever happened, but tonight I remember, and I'm speaking it into the dark, because as long as I say it, just once, it's real. So if you're still listening, if the frequency's still holding, this was the broadcast. This was the memory. This was the truth before it became unspeakable. And wherever you are, whatever version of you is still out there, I hope this reaches you before the next hour rewrites everything again. Good night. And if the past doesn't find us tomorrow, maybe the voice will.